Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monday show. No intro. Just going to kind of get into it today. And I'm going to do a quick sound check. Okay. Make sure I can hear me. Or if you guys can't hear me, usually we have Richard James to tell me that. But looks like I can hear myself. Just did my sound check. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to Monday. And I want to say thanks to anyone who watched the Denise Klon video I made, the Acid Archive Diaries video. So that was not an easy video to make, and I was trying to make it sort of in a way to cater to the Acid Archive book, where they didn't have any information on Denise. And so I sort of was trying to make it to appropriately make a story that would fit the Acid Archives as best as I could. And it wasn't exactly the story I expected to tell you guys right off the bat. But then again, I didn't know about that. When the second edition was released last year, it took me a while to find out about that. So I didn't know that was going to be a thing. So making the first video, you guys know I have talked a little bit about her here and there, but making the first video was not what I was expecting, like I said. Also, I thought about writing stuff down and then making the video the night before, but it just wasn't working out. Like I said, I'm just used to going in front of an audience anymore. But I do want to say this. It does appear that on the Discogs release page of Closer to the Savior, it appears a vinyl community member left a comment where I'm just going to go ahead and read it. There are hundreds of similar albums in dollar bins in every thrift stores across the country. Unfortunately, the cover has caught attention. Edgelords and other jerks used to ridicule it. I think it only ended up in that big book of obscure hip records as a mean joke. So, that's kind of the thing, is I didn't know why that album was chosen for the book, because the music isn't quite psychedelic music. I think the mixing of it with the harmonies, you could argue it's the psychedelic Sunday morning record. That's kind of, like I said, that's kind of how I was pitching it in a way that you guys could relate to it. But if it doesn't belong in that book, someone put it in there for a reason. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, so I do appreciate everyone who checked that out. It's been a lot of hard work digging that information up and looking for her records. So I hope you all at least understand that. Anyway, a few things we're going to talk about. I guess let me catch up with some comments here I saw early on. Zeb, welcome. This stream is a complete disaster. We're going to try and make it through. I'm sorry, guys, but let's see. Arnie, welcome. That's my second favorite Dylan LP after Another Side of Bob Dylan. So, and then we got another, we'll get back. Liberace McGrath has it on free Spotify. He has to listen to Burl Ives live at kindergarten before the Dylan LP gets the free access. Well, I know McGrath is a bit of a Dylan fan. I want to talk about, that's my second favorite Dylan LP after Another Side of Bob Dylan. This is the thumbnail I made. Is just, kind of passive-aggressive thumbnail, if you didn't catch that drift. So I'm going to voice my opinion a little bit on Jason's live stream from last week, and that was picking on the first Bob Dylan album. And I kind of, when I saw that thumbnail, I was like, this is a little bit peculiar. Why are you picking on the first Bob Dylan album? I guess maybe you're trying to reach for an opinion. I wasn't quite sure, but I didn't hear a lot of substance. It was kind of a quiet live stream last week, and I don't know. I don't know that that's a fair assessment to call the first Bob Dylan album a complete disaster. It almost, like, to me, it gives off there might be a misunderstanding on your knowledge of Dylan, and that's okay, because I didn't grow up in that era. I didn't. I don't understand Bob Dylan like someone who would have seen him come up in the early '60s, and I've said here on the channel before that folk music in the early '60s very much was a mainstream pop movement in the '60s. I guess one thing that Jason did allude to, that the day the music died, when Richie Valens and Buddy Holly were killed in a plane crash. And you know, I guess maybe in a sense, the music industry was looking for a hero at that time. Well, here comes, you know, folk music. I sort of feel like there was this movement back then to dress well, you know, well put together, suit and tie. You got your guitar case with you and a cab fare. And that was kind of like the folk movement of the 60s. And then you have Bob Dylan, who released his first album in 1962. Bob Dylan was on the scene uh, years before that first album, trying to get people's attention. And to call his first album a disaster, first of all, he got signed to Columbia because he was a songwriter. He showed them that he had a pen. And when you listen to that first Dylan record, you can hear a young Bob Dylan. He's young and feisty. He's hungry on that record, and you can tell Bob Dylan was hungry in the early '60s. Wanted to get a record deal. Folk music was a mainstream movement at that time. I mean, just look at record covers of folk records back then. You know, Kingston Trio, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Like I said, you guys can find these records everywhere. There's a ton of folk on Elektra. And then Kingston Trio was Capitol. So like every major label had their folk artists, and then you had Columbia signing Bob Dylan. Well, what set aside Bob Dylan from everybody else back then was he was young and feisty. He had a pen, like I just said. And Columbia, you know, they said, okay, we know you can write songs, but we're not ready to, you know, cut you loose, kind of thing. So they said, they mentioned on his live stream last week, two of those songs on the album are written by Bob. The rest of them are covers. Notably, you guys will notice "House of the Rising Sun," which, if you guys have seen the movie or the documentary "No Direction Home," Dave Van Ronk talks all about that in that movie. And so the original writer isn't exactly known of House of the Rising Sun, but Dave Van Ronk was trying to make that his sort of, you know, folk hit back then. And then you have Bob Dylan coming on the scene, first album, 1962. And what does he do? He steals House of the Rising Sun straight from Dave Van Ronk. Now, that's what the movie No Direction Home says about that. Here's this record here. That's what No Direction Home says about that story. But you guys know the most familiar, recognizable version of that song is the Animals' House of the Rising Sun. And in that documentary, Dave Van Ronk sort of has a chuckle about that, like kind of like, you know, a shot right back at Bob Dylan for the Animals stealing it from him. If you want my honest opinion, any version I've heard of that song, the Animals steal it from anybody who ever recorded. And I just think that's the truth. But I think it's a little bit, not only is it a stretch to call this album a disaster, if you want to talk about Bob Dylan albums, that are truly a disaster, I mean, we could spend time on Self-Portrait here. And I mean, this was what, 1970. So I guess real quick, I mean, and I'm no like super huge Dylan fan. I run into those people all the time who, you know, those new Dylan fans, and you can kind of tell, like, you know, they might not know, quite understand his catalog. And so you guys know the motorcycle accident, 1966. And there seemed to be a period after that where maybe Dylan wasn't making his best albums. I think John Wesley Harding was after Blonde on Blonde, after the motorcycle accident. And then he put out albums like Nashville Skyline, which had like Lay Lady Lay on it. And that's just, you know, kind of to me, a mediocre Bob Dylan song. But this Self-Portrait, you guys might know, Bob Dylan made this record cover. This is, as it says, it's a self-portrait of Bob Dylan. And if you guys want to do this yourself, look this up on Discogs. And here on the inner cover lists the entire personnel of everyone who's here on Self Portrait. So talk about a disaster. I mean, we got Norman Blake, David Bromberg. I mean, this is I think maybe I heard someone use an analogy, a genre of music on steroids. This to me is like the Traveling Wilburys on steroids here. I mean, you just got Charlie McCoy is on here. Go check it out for yourself. Pete Drake, the master of this talking steel guitar, is on here. I mean, it's almost like it's almost never ending of the amount of people on here. Also, kind of questionable covers on here. So this was, you know, you could call stuff like that a disaster. Shot of Love. Now, there was Blood on the Tracks, which I think people sort of like say, okay, now this is Dylan coming back to form. And yeah, you know, there are songs like The Idiot Win, which are probably, Blood on the Tracks is a comeback album for Bob Dylan for sure. But throughout the 70s, Bob Dylan was a little iffy, in my opinion. But okay, welcome, Dave. I heard the Wax is Bill Belichick's new. Whoa. I've been hearing some stuff. He likes to date the young women. Dave, I got to say, I think Bill Belichick's new girlfriend is probably a little bit more attractive than the Wax, but I guess you never know. But Bob Dylan killed the harmonica. He killed it, or he killed on it. Explanation, please. Could you show some of your Dave Van Ronk records? They are in the folk section in the other room, so maybe next time I may have one or two, but Self Portrait was the first Dylan. What a turd. And then it's a great LP, Self Portrait. Okay, so we got difference of opinions here, but I'll drop the StreamYard link at a point, and we can talk about Dylan. We can talk about what albums are a disaster. I don't think the first Dylan album is a disaster. That's Dylan coming to form. Dylan sounds young and feisty on that record. He sounds like, in a way, he's trying to roar his lyrics, even though they aren't his, most of them. But I would call it a top 10 Dylan record for sure. And, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that album being a disaster. I don't think it's his best record by any means. I think even by, the Freewheelin' was next. You have a lot of, I think, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right is on there. Anyway, Another Side of Bob Dylan was the third album. And, those are, I still think those first three albums, Dylan is kind of coming together. And which I think, in my opinion, the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan may be a little bit better than Another Side of Bob Dylan. I do think Bob Dylan on Another Side of Bob Dylan is in this sort of like exploring, sort of, just having fun. I think My Back Pages is on there. I would have to, I got the record over there. I have to really look at the song list to give it a full review. I should have pulled that record actually, but before, Highway 61 and his greatest albums, like, Bringing It All Back Home, and, Blonde on Blonde, which I think Blonde on Blonde is a 2 LP, which I think there is a little filler on there. And there's like, Rainy Day Women, number 12 and number 35. That has been criticized as not necessarily the greatest Dylan song in the world. So, here's what I wanted to say about Dylan, though, is in the early 60s, he was a folk artist. And then by the time Bringing It All Back Home, he's got a full band on the album. And same with Highway 61 Revisited. And you guys know the live 1966 performance where you're listening to that and someone yells out Judas, and it's, allegedly a fumed folk fan who thinks Bob Dylan has sold out. Well, I just think that's sort of like bullshit because like folk was popular back then. Folk was, if you really want the true sense of folk music, you do have to look at stuff on like Folkways, or stuff that isn't like on Elektra or a major label. So that to me is true folk. Bob Dylan, I think in a lot of ways, he looked up, he had a lot of rock and roll influences. That's the other thing is about the first Bob Dylan album is you can hear his rock and roll influences and his blues influences in his voice as he's singing. So, excuse me, starting to lose my voice, but anyway, in regards to him going electric, and then talking about, the song House of the Rising Sun, and, the jokes on him because the Animals made that popular. But the funny thing about it is Dylan went electric, 65, 66. And what was happening 66 around that time? Psych was becoming a thing. And by 67, every rock and roll band from the 60s started making psych records, and you got Bob Dylan, and it's like, I don't know if this whole motorcycle accident thing is a myth or what. I mean, he continued to put albums out every year after that. So I do think Blood on the Tracks is a much better album than his early 70s catalog. Desire is like, it's all right. I think people think of Bob Dylan and like the Hurricane as being like, oh, that's like a Bob Dylan like epic song, and it's like it's 8 minutes long, and it's and talk about the personnel on this record. I think a lot of people, he's got a lot of musicians on that song, and it's it's a long song. He's very lyrical in that song. He says the N-word in that song even. And here's the thing is you can really tell who a new Bob Dylan fan is if anybody who says the Hurricane is the best Bob Dylan song, that's a new Bob Dylan fan. And because it's like if you're saying that, you're really kind of skipping over like that, how he became his come up as a folk musician, and then I think him becoming a rock musician, he always wanted to be a rock musician. So I think the best Dylan records, obviously, and we could have like I'll drop the StreamYard link at a certain point, but Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61, and Blonde on Blonde. That was like, the era of Dylan. But anyways, welcome Spring Hill Jim. Looking forward to your visit to the United States next week. I got a lot to get ready here for you still. So I'm going to be spending the next week kind of, making things happen, and hope to have a good, hope to help you have a good stay while you're here anyway. Be a good host. That's what I'm trying to say. Bob Dylan's harmonica playing will make your fillings fall out. Well, gosh, I wouldn't want that happening now. It's not terrible. None of my fillings have fallen out anyway, so excuse me. I will talk about another Dylan record here later on, but so we can move on a little bit. So I went to Sioux City yesterday, and maybe some of you have seen my Sioux City video. I make a Sioux City trip like once every 2 years. And for as many times as I talk about a road trip on my channel, it's not as often as you think. And more recently, I've sort of, it's like kind of like I have a nose for certain things, or like when I catch a buzz of something, I might, make a road trip out of it. But anyway, I went to Sioux City. I did a video on it about a year and a half ago. So, about once every 2 years. And they got a place called DeWolf's, which definitely want to hit up DeWolf's when I go to, it's really the only record store they have. And I had been to some of the thrift stores, but this time around did not do any thrift stores. I hit up the 3 Walmarts there, and I will show you. I will say this, guys. If you are near a small town and you want to get yourself some, I don't know, you might have some luck. It's somewhat of a gamble, but like on my road trip yesterday, we did okay. Let me see here. So I have to run. I'll check back in. Watch me on double speed. I think I'm better on double speed personally, but I really like your T-shirt, Blood on the Tracks. It was his masterpiece, in my opinion. This is actually a reggae tribute to Bob Dylan. Is It Rolling Bob? Got this T-shirt while I was working at Homer's Music. 2005, I think this came out, which I will even talk about some of those 2005 will come up here. But anyway, no, I went to DeWolf's yesterday, and I guess I'll just kind of show you what I got. And we just had Vinyl Richie here, who has been very vocal, not a huge fan of Dolly Parton. Well, this is the world of Dolly Parton on the Monument label. What this really is the two albums she put out on Monument. So her first one, 1967, and then she pretty much went over to RCA when she became partners with Porter Wagoner for the Porter Wagoner Show. But I don't know what the deal is. Her second album on Monument came out in 1970, so she had already been putting out albums with Porter Wagoner, and then some of her own solo albums on RCA within that time. So it could have been to fulfill a contract, but no, this is actually my first copy of this little compilation here. Not easy to find those Monument Dolly Parton records, probably some of the hardest ones to find. I happen to have 4 copies of her original LP. And then that second Monument album, I haven't been able to track that one down. I did have to Discog order it a couple years back, but got that. I don't understand, Vinyl Richie. He says he doesn't, like her voice. I think part of country music and selling records is putting a hot chick on there too. So I think that's sort of like why her records are not rare at all, but they seem to have retained value or even gained value. I guess on that note, there's a Vinyl Me Please did the Vinyl Me Parton. And actually, when I was looking this up, I actually looked up some of those Vinyl Me Parton releases. And I'm not going to lie, I almost joined Vinyl Me Parton. Glad I didn't. And when I was doing the math out, it was like $400 for a year's subscription. And you get I think you end up paying like $35, $40 a copy, something like that after and then they send you a new record every month or something like that. But I was going to do it for some of the later albums they were, that are harder to find on vinyl. And then I just didn't know. I mean, I had so many of her originals. I just didn't really think like $400 was even going to be a good investment, or I just figured, maybe I could pick them off. But now that Vinyl Me Please has gone under, I plan to buy every single copy at TJ Maxx for $15 here in the next couple of years, or I don't know. I honestly think with all that stuff, if you guys know what a deep discount is on eBay, they're like Concert Buddy was the guy who posted that letter. And I guess Vinyl Me Please is selling all their stuff to a company called Vinyl Liquidation LLC or something like that, which I don't know what the hell that is. I can only assume that vinyl that gets liquidated a lot of times goes to the deep discount account on Discogs or on eBay, excuse me. And then I think there's even it used to be Pop Market. I think they changed their name on Discogs, but there's that. And then I almost feel like record stores might be getting a catalog or something. You can order these Vinyl Me Please records for your store. I don't know, but I really don't care. I guess I think Vinyl Me Please got to be the most overrated label ever created. They sort of maybe try to pitch themselves as, we're going to be the label that we make the grails over here. And I don't know what it was. I think the releases are just too over the top. I own 2 of them because I got them cheap, or I guess I've shown both of them before. But the Wu-Tang Clan was the first time it was being put out on 2LP. I think one of the first times. Maybe it was the first time. And it's okay. I think, quality control could have been a little bit better. There does seem to be some pops. My biggest complaint is just the packaging's too tight. And when you pull it all out, putting them back in is oh God, kind of a headache. So that's my biggest complaint about Vinyl Me Please. And then I do think they put just too much like Obi strips, and I think on the Obi strip they even put like a mixed drink, and they're just doing like stuff you don't need to do, and putting in like lithographs at, you know, I don't know, man. See, that's the thing. I think they were trying to like set their reissues apart from everybody, and they ended up spending so much money on their so much bullshit, I guess I could say. But anyways, continuing, I got enough copies of these, but we'll talk about that in a second. Sorry. I got enough copies of these here, but these were sitting there for $3.50 a piece. You know, Willie Nelson in the Outlaw era, but sure can set some campfire logs if he needs to. So, two classic Willie Nelson albums here: "Redheaded Stranger" and "Stardust." Let's see what else. Also, I'll show the Dollar Bin last. Let's see here. Oh, I found this cool record right here, "The Electrifying Guitar of Walter Rain." Didn't know who Walter Rain was. I don't believe I'd ever really seen a copy, or if I had, I may have just passed it up. But like this time around, this just looked too interesting. And you got this shady lady on the cover here. Well, I got this record home. This is kind of like a jazz, like kind of a spaced out jazz guitar album. And I was even trying to think, like, you know, I love like country guitar, Joe Maphis, or you know, Link Ray, huge fan. Jimmy Bryant's cool too, which I think I've shown some Jimmy Bryant records a time or two. But anyway, no, this Walter Rain, I wanted to get this home. And that's kind of, you know, for as much country instrumental guitar that I listen to, this kind of, you know, had that sort of sound to it. And it kind of reminded me in a way of like maybe Link Ray, but maybe like a little bit stripped down. This is kind of spaced out too. So kind of sounds a bit psychedelic in that way, I think. But 1965 was the year that this came out. It does, I mean, this is, Discogs considers this like jazz. It listed personnel as though it were a jazz album. You got Bobby Scott on piano on a couple tracks. Phil Krause, Don Elliott played the vibes on here. You got Hank Jones on piano. Hank Jones is the only name that I recognize as being like, you know, a personnel who's been on like, you know, Hank Jones has played on like hard bop albums. This is not hard bop, so you're not going to get a lot of like, you know, you're not going to get very much hard bop. It's still a really cool record. When I got home, this was one of the first records I played. Quite the nice surprise. I don't know if anybody out there has a copy of that, but we got Patrick Sweden. Hit like for the TV. Is this the real Patrick Sweden? You know, I don't know. I almost want to check. I don't know how I would. Well, Patrick Sweden, welcome here. I don't think it's the real Patrick Sweden, but hit like for the TV show. Thank you. It would be appreciated if you do. I'm not sure if I have crapped out yet. I'm sure I have, and as I was ranting, and if I have, I do apologize. But and if it hasn't happened yet, I'm sure it's going to happen soon. Anyways, I guess I'll talk about this here. So this is just nice to have. Betty Everett compilation, who, you know, of course, did some songs and one album with Jerry Butler. So there is some of that stuff on here. But for those of you who might not be too familiar with Betty Everett, she had a #1 hit with the Shoop Shoop song. And then, you know, also did You're No Good. So kind of like a nice, you know, 60s soul pop right here. Totally in competition with Motown. So, you know, talking about Northern Soul and a lot of those artists who were trying to come up, there was a lot of competition with the Motown sound in the early 60s. Betty Everett was right there and gave Motown a run there. But speaking of which, pick this up too. I don't know if you guys know much on this compilation here, this Supergirls compilation. I only pick this up really if it is the 4LP, which this is the 4LP version. I will need a little bit of a clean, and that's okay because I'm pretty good at doing that. But this is the 4LP version. This is really, it's funny how you got the biker chicks on here, and I think what this came out in like the late 70s, where I don't know if they were trying to go with like the Joan Jett vibe or like trying to, market this towards like, punk rock perhaps. But I mean, it is pretty badass. I mean, you got Leader of the Pack, the Shangri-Las, you got Heat Wave by Martha and the Vandellas. Let's just name it a few. My Guy by Mary Wells. So, um, Little Eva Locomotion. Let's see, the Chordettes on here and the Shirelles. I mean, you got a lot of hits on here. I know between there's two kind of different versions of this. There's a 3 LP and a 4 LP where, obviously with the fourth one, they are adding songs. They do sort of change up some songs, but yeah, cool finding that there too at DeWolf's. But what else did I pick up at DeWolf's? Let me see here. Trying to go in order here. I guess I picked. Now I'm like in. All right, there goes the dryer again. I've been in this salvage every Jeannie C. Riley record in the world. I don't know why. This is actually for a cover replacement, and this is actually right here is really just for the cover, which I think is totally badass right here. This is a Pickwick compilation, believe it or not. But for as many Jeannie C. Riley records as I see out there, I think this is like the third time I've ever seen this, and the second one that I own because the other copy I found, the guy just wanted too much for it. But I think I've only paid $1 for these, but yeah, I don't know. She's pretty cool. Her first album came out on Little Darlin', so I always thought of her as being like Johnny Paycheck's Little Darlin' because he started that label up. So, but then she sure took off right after that record with her hit Harper Valley PTA, and then her fame didn't last that long. And a lot of people sort of tried to cash in on covering that song too. And she made a ton of money on it. Unfortunately, I mean, she had some hits, but maybe she could be argued a one-hit wonder. But I still think she's pretty cool. Not my favorite country singer, but part of being a female country singer back then was looking adorable, which she had no trouble with. So, anyways, let me see here. Let me see. Pick this up too. George Jones, The Battle, which is a 1976 George Jones album. So George Jones, the best George Jones is going to be like Mercury or Musicore and Starday. Some of that early George Jones is the best, but George Jones left for Epic Records in the late 60s or early 70s to be with Tammy Wynette. Now, this is the one of the last albums on Musicore, George Jones. I'm not a George Jones expert, but I guess he was complaining. He didn't think Musicore was giving him enough creative control. I don't know how I feel about that. I think some of his best records were put out on Musicore. Well, he teamed up with Tammy Wynette because why not? And put out some records with her as George and Tammy, and then put out some solo records on Epic too. Funny thing. So, my dad just passed away, and I'm gonna just bring him up here for a moment because he left me with about a yard of George Jones records, which include mostly, like I said, Musicore, Mercury, and the Starday stuff. And he didn't leave me with a lot of George and Tammy stuff. And funny thing, this is a George Jones album, not a George and Tammy album, because Tammy Wynette was on Epic back then. And so George Jones married Tammy Wynette and went over to Epic Records, where he must have signed like a 20-year contract because he stayed on Epic, through the late 80s. But The Battle, I don't know if this is also Tammy Wynette on the cover. This is pretty good. George Jones record. Funny thing is, you got Emmylou Harris who writes this like sort of long excerpt on the back here about totally just huge George Jones. In fact, she even mentions that sometimes sometimes she feels obnoxious with her enthusiasm over George Jones. So I guess they picked the right person. And if you want my honest opinion, I do sort of think maybe Tammy Wynette was kind of watered down George Jones there for his epic years. And I actually, my dad, who left me with a yard of George Jones albums, I had this conversation with him because I went over to his house and he was giving me some records one day, and there was like a rare epic George Jones album. And so I'm like, don't you like this George Jones album? And he's, I think he's kind of, to him, George Jones is, once 1970 hit and he was with Tammy Wynette, it was kind of getting watered down. If you want my opinion, I do think like George Jones in the 70s was better than Bob Dylan. But you can kind of tell, he's not as white lightning as he once was. Once the lady got involved, maybe in a lot of ways like Yoko Ono, which ironically enough, right around the same time. But let's see, what else could I show here? There was this, and then there was also, gosh, this, right? A couple of greatest hits records just sitting there. This is an MCA press, which I think my first ever copy of this was like an MCA rainbow label of this album. And then picked up a Decca one not too much later after that. But I mean, I don't know. I've listened to this album so much. It's it's got the hits, man. I don't know. I don't really even feel like talking about it much. Kind of like this, another greatest hits collection. What's my favorite song on here? I don't really know. It's like a greatest hits album. But see what else we got here. Now, I guess I also, well, let me just pull all these out here. Pick this up too. So I was picking up a lot of country records, but I talked about Patrice Rushen a couple weeks ago anyway. The album Straight from the Heart, which mentioned she was more of a jazz musician, but by the 80s, she really kind of followed that Quiet Storm sort of wave. And you have this song Feels So Real, was heavily sampled in hip hop music. And I think Camp Lo is the one that comes to mind, but I looked this up on who sampled. It's been sampled so many times, I didn't even recognize some of the artists that were using that song. But cool Patrice Rushen album. Then also, I'm getting into country records. I'm sort of getting into some newer stuff here. So that sort of comedy country. So Johnny Bond, the funny thing about his record covers, they're all like sort of like barroom setting. You what you see is what you get with Johnny Bond, is what I'm trying to say. But no, these are fun records, just like, good humor, which corny country humor, which was sort of like just part of classic country. And, I always sort of like took these records for granted, for years. But now that I'm just sort of getting them for free, now I sort of want to start picking them up for $1. So cool that happens, Records should be cheap. Speaking of which, paid $3.50 for the Ventures Christmas album. What I do, if you haven't caught on yet, is I can build up like 6 copies of this throughout the year and then sell them all at Christmas time. But I just the Ventures are great. Talk about like surf music that's mainstream. I mean, they were the go-to surf band of the '60s. All their albums are great. Shouldn't have a hard time finding any of them. If you want to go deeper on surf rock, Sundays had a lot of great compilations of like some of those more rare surf 45s. And then I'm actually going through some of these 45s. I know there's a lot of surf stuff in there. So one of these days we'll do a whole entire episode on surf rock. How about that? Let's see, what else did I get there though? I'll kind of go through these dollar bin joints here. So we got, for the next time, Vinyl and Kicks 86 places an order with me on Discogs. I got Christmas Day by Kitty Wells. Actually, Christmas time this does sell. So we'll add that to the Christmas crate. Picked up some budget, Wanda Jackson, budget Wanda Jackson, not her best stuff. But, when she started going country after, rockabilly sort of was going out of style, there was country music for her. And then I guess when, maybe country music was going out of style, there was gospel here for her. Same thing sort of happened to Jeannie C. Riley. I don't know You guys have noticed that. Well, same thing sort of happened to like every, country artist, including Loretta Lynn a little bit, but these are great, like, mid 60s. I think 68 is the year on here. Fist City could be 67. I mean, I don't have all my Loretta Lynn albums all memorized necessarily, but I know those are great ones. And then I guess also for Christmas time, we got Merle Haggard Christmas in at DeWolf's in the Dollar Bin. Also in the Dollar Bin, no records in here, but he actually just gave these to me for free. These are original covers. So we got Lil Kim Hardcore, which I think this entire album was written by Notorious B.I.G. Came out in '96 while he would have still been alive. And funny thing about Lil Kim's like rapping style, you can really tell that Notorious B.I.G. wrote like most all of her songs, and her style and everything just sounds like Biggie. But I think, they call her Lil Kim. I think she was like 5 feet tall. Like she was literally Lil Kim. But anyways, I don't know what's going on with this guy anymore. He sure put a lot of albums out over his career. Not as many as George Jones or anything like that. But original cover here, I don't know. I don't think Jay-Z should ever put out another album again. I sort of think it's probably in his best interest to sort of stay out of the limelight. I've been, when I'm doom scrolling late at night on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, occasionally one of those like P. Diddy, Jay-Z stories will come up. And, I don't know. I don't really like going down that rabbit hole. I'm not going to lie. It's like those types of rabbit holes are just kind of like creepy to me. But kind of what you don't know won't hurt you sort of thing. But this album actually came out on 9/11. A few albums, I think, actually even did Bob Dylan there's a Bob Dylan album that came out on 9/11 too. I know what the cover looks like, and I'm trying to remember the name of the album. Help me out if someone remembers. But no, there was like this came out on 9/11. It honestly, before I knew, I haven't listened to this album or any Jay-Z ever since this stuff broke the news. That's the thing, is like sometimes certain events like that happen in the news, and it changes your perspective on how you once knew someone, or does it. Anyways, no, this was like always known as like one of Jay-Z's best albums, and early Kanye West production on here. You even had Q-Tip on the chorus of Girls, Girls, Girls on here, which I think is a pretty big deal. Eminem guest appearance. And then there's like secret songs on here, which are pretty cool as well. But for the covers, I'm actually probably should have no problem selling those on Discogs, or I don't know, maybe I'll fish around for some vinyl and Frankenstein them. But anyway, George would drive riding his lawnmower to the bar when his wife took the keys. George Jones, I can see that, funny. Anyways, I picked this up too. Willis Allen Ramsey, which is on the Shelter label. I'm going to show you. This is a reissue. This was in the Dollar Bin, and this is not an original. This is like maybe in mid 70s. I think this album came out in 74. So 74. So Marty and Organ, add this to your want list if you don't already have it. The funny thing about this label is when the first issue tried to put a Superman logo on the label, and I think they had to black out the Superman logo before they released it. So anyway, this doesn't have that on it, but the original Superman logo presses of this go for over $40, and this pulled out of the Dollar Bin. I consider it a score. Maybe a reissue is a $10 record. I'm not sure, but this is a great. Talk about Bob Dylan and folk albums in the 70s. This was 1974. And what album was, I think Bob put out? I think it was Planet Waves, Bob put out in 74, which is, Bob. That's kind of another weird Bob Dylan album, in my opinion. I think this is better than any Neil Young album in the 70s. And I think this is, I could argue is this as good as Blood on the Tracks. This all songs written by Willis Allen Ramsey. Come to find out, this was his only album, and you know, unfortunate because great songwriter, and I think this is more enjoyable than anything Neil Young put out in the '70s, even. Um, so yeah, no, this is great stuff right here. Willis Allen Ramsey. I did look him up a little bit more. He was kind of more like a session musician throughout the '70s, and I know he is on the album Old Waylon. Um, with the big hit Lukenbach, Texas, a classic. But anyway, let me get some water here. And you know what? I guess that's not everything I got at DeWolf's, but that's all I'm going to show you because some of the stuff, isn't really worth talking about too much. Or maybe I have talked about it and don't need to again, but I did dip around to some Walmarts, while I'm there. And that's the thing. It's like, you guys know me. If the place got a record, I'm going to stop and check it out. So, and at Walmart, I'm really only, I'm not paying full price for my shit at Walmart. Not typically, but I got this here, Dwight Yoakam live, Austin City Limits. So I mentioned this. Someone asked about in 2005. This came out. And 2005, I was working at Homer's, and all these Austin City Limits were coming out like crazy. So I know we used to listen to them because I think part of it was like required, like in-store play requirement. So I know I've listened. I don't know. I don't really remember if I've listened to this or not. I know the cover looked different, and when I looked this up when I got home, I realized it was the same release. But I might have to open this up and give this a spin. This was just like $15, and that's the thing. So I picked up of the Austin City Limits when these were coming out at Walmart when they were having their sale. I picked up the Merle, the Waylon, and the Willie Nelson. I think I got a couple of the Willie Nelsons. And then I saw this. I kind of regret not picking up like all of these too, but having one is nice. Dwight Yoakam is cool as hell. Mid 80s, kind of got his career started and kept honky tonk alive throughout the 80s, which talk about a troubadour, Dwight Yoakam. Excellent stuff. So we are I don't know, I might have to just change. I guess that Bob Dylan technically is in the thumbnail here, but found this. And this is weird because this wasn't in the vinyl section at Walmart. I picked this up at Walmart. And I'm only there looking for sale stuff, clearance stuff, or whatever. And this is a location, I forget which one, but I went to the regular section, and they didn't have much of anything in the regular section. And I'm like, fuck, man, it's like you hate going. You want to part of it is like I want to go there and at least get something. And when you strike out, that always sucks. It does happen. But I didn't find anything in the regular section. And then I went to their little clearance aisle, and I'm just sitting there thinking, there's got to be something here. Well, anyway, this was peeking out at me, and a little bit more than I want to pay. I think I paid $18 for this, but it was on clearance. And I had to look this up because, when records are getting reissued, you don't know if they're like, how many they're doing or how many are pressed or whatever. So this is a 1989 Bob Dylan album. And we want to talk about, if we want to talk about Bob Dylan disasters, this is where you really start getting into what I would like to call Dylan exploitation. So this is kind of like, now I even had to open this up last night and listen to it because I can't remember last time I heard this, or even if I heard it at all, because I remember working at Homer's. This was really easy to find on CD, and I just always knew this was maybe kind of like another one of those sketchy Dylan albums. But 1989, and I've mentioned enough times, like that was a year they were pushing CDs on people. But when I looked this up on Discogs, didn't seem like there was a lot of copies of this in the US. But anyways, I got Michael Noland here. So who Michael Noland, who I totally troll your live stream on Sunday all the time. Well, he's here to start something with me. It's all good, Michael. I don't know what your issue is, but anyway, talking more about this record. So I think on like some Dylan comps, the songs on here that I was familiar with was Most of the Time, and then Everything is Broken, which Everything is Broken is a great song. But when you listen to the whole album, it doesn't really have that other, you know, Everything is Broken. And then the song Most of the Time, which comes on this, side 2, it's kind of a lackluster Dylan song. If you wanted to talk disasters, I don't know that I would call this a disaster. Um, I've talked about the George Jones album that came, I think it's called One Woman Man. I think I showed a couple weeks ago. I think that's a little bit better record. I think A Horse Called Music by Willie Nelson, put out in the same year, was also a better record. But I think with songs like Everything is Broken, you can tell Dylan still has his pen, and he kind of wants to show you, he still can put out a jam or two. Well, I kind of, it's an okay Dylan album. On a scale of Dylan, like if I'm going to rate this album, I don't know. I'm not much of an albums rating guy. Let's give this album a 10 out of 10. But I think like, a guy like Bob Dylan and what we're used to hearing from Bob Dylan, you can create like a scale of Dylan. And on a scale of Dylan, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 10. And it's okay. I don't know that I could compare it. I wouldn't compare this to like anything that he did in the early 70s. I could rank some of those albums 5 out of 10, but no, this is Dylan sort of like in comeback mode, I guess I could say. I think, I'm a little bit more familiar with like Time Out of Mind, which I do think is a little bit better album, but that album is also a long album. Like, I think that album's like over 70 minutes, I want to say, but, it's been a while since I've listened to that, but, anyways, guys, that's a lot of record talk here today. Oh, long-winded. Anyways, so let me see. Now, guys, on the Graveyard channel last week, I uploaded a video called "Is Paul McCartney Really Dead?" So I want to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to drop the StreamYard link here. And I want to invite some people on panel here as I talk about this. Is Paul McCartney really dead? Well, ironically enough, we have Michael Nolan in the chat here. Who I've seen Michael Nolan has done a video on this. I didn't watch Michael's video, but I want to talk about this. Is Paul McCartney really dead video. Now, when I uploaded it, it blocked it in the United States. So if you were the only people who have seen it on the Graveyard channel anyway, I know Martin McGrath jumped in on the premiere and gave his 2 cents. I was going to invite Martin McGrath up here and maybe even extend the olive branch here, but I'm going to talk about this. Is Paul McCartney really dead? So Joel Gilbert is the director of this. Now, I'm going to tell you guys a little backstory. I'm not going to give away the whole movie. If you guys want to watch it yourself, I'm sure you could dig it out for free on the internet. I had a copy on my old laptop, which is 17 years old from college. And that was kind of back when I used to just download, like if I didn't think something was going to be available, next year or something, I'm like, I better download this. So I do have a bunch of videos on, kind of those rabbit hole conspiracy type videos. Well, anyway, I downloaded Is Paul Really Dead? And the thing is, if it allowed the upload, then it was going to kind of be like a discussion piece. But anyway, we can kind of do that here, rather. So anyway, so welcome Stunty to the channel. Michael, that's because not the is fake Michael Nolan. Okay, we got a Billy Budd here. He'd be right not to like Stunty Rock, though. Okay. Welcome, Billy Butt. It's one of Mother's Flying Monkeys. Okay. Yeah, yeah, we all know Michael Nolan is a Miam love troll. Um, youth at heart, right? He's got the long hair. Anyways, Joel Gilbert, so works at a Hollywood studio, is the director of this video, received some cassette tapes which are allegedly from George Harrison. Now, the backstory behind this is George received cassette tape, or I'm sorry, Joel Gilbert received cassette tapes it's called like the Last Testament of George Harrison. You guys might remember George was attacked by a fan shortly before he died. And I think it was a few years, maybe like 5 years, was attacked at his home by a crazed fan. Now, according to this story, the attack caused George to make these cassette tapes in case, like these confession tapes that detail this alleged death of Paul McCartney in 1966. All right, it crapped out there, but wasn't in the middle of or it may have been. Uh, anyways, if you guys are still with me here, we got a fake Michael Nolan here, who I can only assume it is. Sorry for that weird pause, guys. So yeah, no, fake Michael Nolan. It's either McGrath or Glassman. But anyways, we're going to talk about is Paul McCartney really dead here? As I sort of calm down. So the whole video is narrated by a George Harrison impressionist. So the actual cassette tapes that the director received, you do not hear, and or maybe you hear, and maybe these cassette tapes are a fabrication. Well, I'm going to tell you, this documentary is bullshit. And any of you guys carrying this the fake Paul McCartney, it's a fun little entertaining rabbit hole to dive down into, but I'm actually going to debunk some of these theories. So this is kind of why I was wanting to get this is kind of why I wanted to get some people up here. Martin McGrath, who apparently thinks that Paul McCartney really did die in 1966. Now, there are arguments that support this. But the one thing I want to mention is they call Paul McCartney Fall with an F to once he had died, the real Beatles couldn't deal with the fake Paul, and they called him Fall, which okay. Basically, they don't they detail this alleged accident, which is kind of a weird scenario to begin with. So what had happened, I guess, a crazed fan sees Paul McCartney, but he's in a car, and the fan jumps in the car, freaks out, hugs him, and then the car explodes and decapitates Paul McCartney. And this is like, I don't know, August 66, allegedly. And then it really doesn't give very much detail on his death other than the scenario in which it happened, which kind of seems like a weird occurrence. But anyway, it starts to give mostly album clues. Like, the Beatles are giving album clues to sort of prove that he is dead. And the first clues that they start to give are from the albums Rubber Soul and Revolver, which came out in 1965. So right away, if you are not a total idiot and chronological, Beatles albums chronologically, you'll know that, those albums came out prior to his alleged death. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the arguments that support it. So most of it is like, album cover clues. And when they start talking about Sergeant Pepper's in this thing, they really get into little things that they put on the cover. Some of the celebrities, which are some of which are dead or had a similar near-death experience as Paul's real death or alleged death. Bob Dylan actually is on the Sergeant Pepper's cover, and in the movie they say that he's on the cover because of his motorcycle accident, and so he fit up there nicely, I guess. But you got to give me a little bit more than album cover clues. Now, another thing they say is they had to find a Paul McCartney replacement, which, if you guys have heard the story, there was this Paul McCartney lookalike contest. So these are the arguments that support Paul is really dead. So there was a lookalike contest where a guy named William Campbell won this contest. And I guess according to this documentary, the judges didn't know what they were a part of replacing Paul McCartney, but they chose William Campbell, a guy named William Campbell, who happened to be a musician. And he won this contest. But despite winning it and despite looking so much alike the real Paul McCartney, there were still some obvious facial differences that weren't, quite there. Like William Campbell doesn't have that eyebrow that Paul McCartney had or had. So they had to do like just, the documentary said that they had to do a lot of plastic surgery on Paul McCartney on the fake one and to make him look closely to the real one. Well, I don't know. You got to give me a little bit more than that too. So the other argument that supports this is the last live Beatles show is, I think, July of 1966. And then allegedly Paul McCartney dies. And then they put out Sergeant Pepper's, which, according to what I just said about the documentary, they're already using 1965 album clues, which if that's true, then it's kind of like basically saying, oh no, the Beatles planned to murder Paul McCartney. So, I don't know. That's kind of how I was sort of interpreting it. But no, I think this is mostly bullshit. If you want my honest opinion on the Beatles not performing after 1966, it's because they were making psych albums. And I would imagine Sergeant Pepper's isn't a really easy album to play live. And then I think they really, as they were doing psych, they just became a studio band. And, I think there was like, a final performance, after the 1966, but it wasn't like anything, at a stadium or anything like that. But no, I really, it's fun to watch stuff like that, but I sort of think it's a fun rabbit hole, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But let me see. Prediction: Stunchy's room will cave in on the live DJs. Okay, so oh crap. So sometimes you guys just get to talking and I sort of lose track. I go on my own rants and kind of lose track of what you guys are talking about. But I don't know, Spring Hill Jim, if you want to come up here, maybe we could get you and Martin McGrath, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the whole Paul McCartney death conspiracy. I guess on that note, let me talk about the Beatles solo albums because, or actually, you know what? Real quick, let me talk about because Paul McCartney was dating Jane Asher. Jane Asher is pretty attractive or very attractive. I mean, I don't know. I mean, me looking at photos of women in the 1960s, I mean, I was not part of that time frame, but legend has it that Linda McCartney was part of like this Beatles fan club and supposedly has a photo of the fake Paul McCartney with the Beatles, and said that she can prove with the photo evidence that it's a fake Paul. Well, in order to keep quiet, uh, Linda or Paul had to agree to marry Linda in order to keep quiet. I mean, I don't know. Some of that shit just, I don't know. But I heard someone who believes in that story say, why would Paul, in his right mind, leave Jane Asher for Linda? And I don't know, man. You're asking me, a guy who just looks at some photos here from from a generation behind me, but good all over. The wax passed away and nobody bothered to tell him. So anyway, so really, Paul is dead. That's terrible. The guy who replaced him is pretty talented. Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, is because I think of any of those Beatles solo albums, my favorite ones are Band on the Run and Ram in a lot of ways. And another thing that I kind of want to debunk this theory. William Campbell was a right-handed guitar player, and Paul McCartney was a left-handed guitar player. So I think the documentary even says like uh, that's sorry guys for lagging. It happens. Anyways, they couldn't teach the guy to play left-handed. So I don't know, man. I don't know what to say on that, guys. Like I said, I think the only thing to say about it, it was a fun little movie. If you guys have seen the vinyl community troll Billy Spleen, his icon actually is William Campbell, the guy who won the Paul McCartney lookalike contest. So, funny thing is, let me see if this is still up. Oh yeah, it is. So yeah, I'm gonna show you guys this real quick. So I got my share screen here. And this is the conspiracy that I really want to talk about. Now, Paul McCartney is dead. That movie's been put out. I think, in my honest opinion, it was blocked from YouTube because of a United States copyright. But because it was an independent film, I don't know that. I think that's maybe why it's not blocked worldwide. I don't know. If the thing were true, I would think that they would want to hide the truth and it would be blocked worldwide. But I think they just let it be because it's some bullshit. But anyway, this is a new revelation. So the clip I'm playing for you is on half speed mastered. But you'll see Paul McCartney, and this is like I think December 2024. And look behind him, there's a man in glasses next to this blonde lady. He'll kind of appear here. He's kind of tucked back. Oh, there you see his face a little bit. That's Elton John. Oh wait, no, that's who is that? We've seen glasses like that before, and then those sunglasses, those circular style glasses. Is that John Lennon in the year 2024? Well, anyway, this clip surfaced on the internet last December, and it just came on my radar right now. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is an alleged sighting of John Lennon here in the year 2024. So how about that, guys? I sent that to Spring Hill Jim, and I know he sort of entertained the fake Paul McCartney uh, conspiracy a little bit. It's fun to entertain that stuff. I wouldn't take it to the bank by any means, but that now that is what I would call that's what needs some questioning right there. That's actually something that I could um, who was the guy? Help me out, somebody. The guy who killed John Lennon. It wasn't Hinckley. That was the guy who tried to assassinate Reagan. Mark David Chapman. If I'm thinking of if I'm wrong, let me know. But no, Mark David Chapman, I think there's even a lot of similarities between like him and William Hinckley, Saran, who would have killed JFK or RFK. A lot of similarities in like what's alleged to be MK Ultra mind control. So where I think they might, I don't know a lot about that stuff. I have looked into it, but they might find a subject who they deem is already like unstable mentally, and maybe they can trick him into a situation. I don't know, man. It's like it's weird to speak on that, but I guess I've mentioned a lot of 60s and 70s songwriters were falling out of place in the 80s when with new sounds and new wave and um 80s mainstream pop, or like you guys might even think of like, well, hey, Jefferson Starship, we built this city. I mean, that's what I mean is like so many artists from that time period had a hard time adapting to that 80s sound. And I mean, there was metal was getting big. um you know uh that was a big thing back then for those artists. A funny thing mentioning the Traveling Wilburys earlier. I mean, if it kind of weren't for like Jeff Lynne and ELO, I think a lot of those guys sort of gravitated to him, or even Tom Petty, uh, as like the producer to go to for the '80s, for struggling '80s artists. Anyway, so that I don't know, that ended up being sort of a topic here today. Struggling artists throughout the '70s and '80s. But anyways, we got a couple guests here. Welcome, Stunt Rock. Welcome, Spring Hill Jim.
Oh, Jim.
Stunty, my good man. It's JD Vanstone. Oh, there's an echo.
I think there's an echo.
I don't hear an echo.
It might be you. Maybe.
Do you want me to check if I can? Maybe I can take out thing. It will probably change for you, not for me or not for the viewers. It's just inside the StreamYard thing. Now it should be fine.
Okay. Well, if it's
that sounds to me now.
Okay. Well, hey, can I get your guys' thoughts on Paul McCartney's alleged death, 1966? Any opinions?
So the allegation or the theory, correct me if I'm wrong, is that he died in a car crash and he was replaced by a man named
William Campbell.
Billy Shears, right?
Well, so Billy Shears, the lyric in the song Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the one and only Billy Shears. Well, I think in the clue that that's part of the album clue is Billy Shears is supposed to be Billy's here, which Billy is Billy Budd, who's in the chat here. No, Billy is supposed to be William Campbell.
Who's Billy Budd, by the way? Is it also Vag or Fancy Pants?
I think Billy Budd is Jason Rojas.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No, it's not.
I think it's Jason.
No, but it's not. I'm telling you, I know it's not.
I think you're wrong. I'm pretty sure it's Rojas.
No, but
I'm pretty sure it is, because Rojas has a couple accounts.
It's not Jason Rojas.
It's not. I know it's not. Everyone knows it's not.
You know what?
Him.
Okay, well, I'm gonna need to see some hand evidence.
Oh, come on! Don't do that. Don't do that.
Sorry, I'm gonna need to see some hand evidence. So, yeah. Billy Budd, I got the StreamYard link there if you want to.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that you're trolling with the whole hands of Mark Lastman. Then, but let's go back to Mark.
At this point, you can only have fun with it, man.
Yeah. But Mark Chapman, whatever. Like, what are we talking about? No. You were talking about allegedly that Paul McCartney was killed in 1960 something.
I want to get people's thoughts on this. I mean, I know people sort of.
I thought my thinking about it is it's not worth 10 seconds of our time. He's alive, and that's
probably
all.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, no, I threw that up on the Graveyard just for I don't know. It's something. PB Hall hasn't been live streaming lately, so I think people just needed something to watch. So that's why I put it up there. But anyways,
do you think I'd rather watch PB4 than you?
I mean, Most people want to watch PB Thal.
No, they don't.
They want to watch PB Thal bullshit while with
No, it's not bullshit.
with his
It's-
buddies to
Come
background
on.
music.
No, he's got his little thing. He's got his little niche.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
people into it, and that's it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I think why PB Thal is kind of his live streams are so big is it's not easy to find heavy metal on the like the 80s metal doesn't get played on the radio as much as it used to. So it's kind of like an 80s metal hangout night.
Yeah,
But
I guess his metal, like the metal he's interested, probably stops in 1988 or so. I mean, there might be bands who come after that, but who do the stuff from before 88. I think that like Napalm Death, Carcass, and all that, he's out.
Yeah, okay. You are sort of steering a little bit of a direction with the Napalm Death there, but well, it's all right. I'm going to read Dusty Spins. What do we got here? So we got the Smiths here from Spring Hill Gym.
I have a question for I don't know even Jim's real name, but for Jim, in the VC, to the best of your knowledge, since you've become a sort of expert on the VC, Jim, how
This, by
many
the way,
people? How many people in the VC do you think? How many people does William not have a beef with in the VC?
not have a beef with.
From William's side,
Well, he's
he doesn't have a beef with you or with me.
there's Vinyl Richie, there's Dave the Pickup Artist, there's Arnie Zanzibar, there's loads of people.
Yeah, that's 5. One hand, and I think you named them.
Why don't you just ask me who I have beef with? I think what is more accurate, Jason Rojas has some beef with me. Mark Lastman still has some beef.
Oh, it
with me,
goes
but
both ways.
I don't really, seriously, at this point, I don't care about what they do.
By the way,
Oh
this,
yeah, no, that, I believe you.
Okay.
William.
this is Morrissey with Ian
Yeah,
McCullough
Dracula.
from
Yeah,
Echo and the Bunnymen. Another great
partly from Echo and the Bunnymen. Yeah,
80s band from that period, yeah.
I got to be honest, I am
Liverpool.
probably more of an Echo and the Bunnymen fan than
Name one song from Echo and the Bunnymen.
Ocean Rain. There.
That's an album.
Fuck, dude. I don't know, man. I don't memorize fucking people's
No,
songs necessarily.
I don't usually, but like
I
the
mean,
Smiths,
no,
it's
honestly,
easy.
I listen to full albums, and I don't necessarily say. I mean, some songs I absolutely love and do remember the song, but it's like I'm at a point in my collection where I just have thousands now with this new collection, maybe close to 10,000 albums. You cannot possibly remember every little detail. I do the best I can. I was always a casual Echo and the Bunnymen fan, so anyways, what's your favorite Echo and the Bunnymen song there, Stunty?
I think it would be a remix they did of KLF.
I thought you would say that.
No, but the interesting part is that they're a Liverpool band, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, huh? But are you familiar with the punk band Big in Japan?
Not too much, no.
So Big in Japan was a sort of super band from Liverpool. There were people from Susie and the Banshees, from different bands. And back then, when Echo and the Bunnymen started, they were really not into punk. They said, "Oh, we don't want to have anything to do with that shit." And these people, either they were a Pink Industry, were in Big in Japan as well. And the guy from KLF, he was in Big in Japan back in '79. And years later, like when KLF is the biggest thing in the UK in 1990 or 1991, then like you see the connection was there, and there was always like communication and kinship, because and that's the scene that people. It's funny how like when people talk about Liverpool, oh Beatles, but there was like the punk scene or post-punk scene in Liverpool was actually very diverse and very interesting and long-lasting, and has still a long influence in British music.
Yeah, no, I mean that's
think a lot of it was in
where
Manchester.
that sound in a lot of ways was born. And no, I mean, it was the funny thing about punk. I mean, it was all a special time in music, but it was always moving fast. It was changing year to year, is changing even almost every day. And
For me, punk is not about
William, the famous venue, the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, where the Sex Pistols played. And it was the first venue they played outside of London, I think.
It's one of the yeah.
Yeah,
and Joy Division, the Fall, the Smith, they all met there. Well, I mean, they were all at that gig before they were.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Correct.
No, okay.
Also in the audience were the members who would go on to form the Buzzcocks.
Yeah,
and they formed the band like Pete Shelley, Howard Devoto, John Mayer, all of those guys. And then the next time the Pistols played at that same venue, Buzzcocks were the opening act. They were the support band.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of punk, post-punk activity in Manchester, in the north in general, north of England. Those two but Manchester is way ahead of Liverpool.
It's not ahead. It's different. It's very parallel.
In terms of quality or quantity, I mean, quantity, Manchester has more bands, without question.
More bands that you know of, but do you know Pink Military? They have 4 albums.
I'm willing. That's a different opinion. You know, that's the beauty of free speech and having different opinions. You know, we can disagree, or we can agree, or we can.
Yeah, but you can disagree. You can either disagree from a point of knowledge or from a point of whatever your knowledge is. Like that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge. I've met people who are crazy about Susie and the Banshees. They've kind of not been my thing, but no, there's
some really fun songs by Susie and the Banshees. It's funny because in the 80s and 90s we used to call that goth. Now it's called post-punk because it's like goth has such a stigmata, but or maybe it doesn't anymore. But
I want to mention this. If this is true, what Dusty Spins is saying, Sid Vicious played drums as a Banshee for 1 gig, I believe. If that's true, I mean, this is a guy who could barely even hold his bass guitar. If he played drums, I can't imagine it'd be a very fun, experience.
The drummer in punk bands back then, in a local,
you still got to know. Even the drummer for the Ramones, Marky Ramone, he actually was on that album, Dust. I have that album over there, which I don't want to reach for at the moment. But no, you gotta know how to play your instruments. And actually, I want to talk about this. That show that everybody met at, and I think there was a Sex Pistols show where, the Buzzcocks formed, and then there were, members of Warsaw, which went on to become Joy Division. And Peter Hook was there, and Ian Curtis was there. And the funny thing about them, they really wanted to be the Sex Pistols. They did not know, however, how to play their instruments. And,
according to Genesis P. Orridge of Throbbing Gristle and Psychic TV, right before Joy Division was about to embark on their tour, and Ian Curtis committed suicide.
For the United States.
Yeah, they had both. They had phone calls about wanting to do a press conference together and announcing that they were both quitting their band and forming a super band together. Is it true or not? Who knows? But he's actually written that in his biography.
Who's Peter Hook's biography?
Oh no, Genesis P. Orridge from Throbbing Gristle and later Psychic TV.
The original name was.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Actually, in Ian Curtis' biography, I think that around that time they were getting ready to tour the U.S. and Ian Curtis had epilepsy, and that's actually those spastic movements that Ian Curtis would make on stage. That was actually due to his epilepsy, and I think people thought he was doing some sort of dance as an act. Well, it ended up becoming that. And you guys might know, if you've seen Michael Stipe from REM, he used to mimic those movements of Ian Curtis. So I mean, it ended up being very influential on someone anyway. But no,
the name Joy Division, that actually comes from the brothels.
Yes.
Concentration
in Germany. Yeah.
Brothels. They had a little bit of strange fixation with Nazi Germany there, from Warsaw to
Yeah.
Joy Division, and then I don't know if you've seen the first EP. What was
Yeah,
it
you
called?
see Hitler Jungen drumming. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Hitler
that's
Youth Boy. That was drawn by Bernard Sumner, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think they were about to, right
but
before his
man,
death.
like back then in the punk movement, like, or scene, like if you look at the very first Jah Wobble 7-inch, you have him in the streets of London doing a zig high.
Yeah, no,
It was a different time. Provocation, threshold was different than now. Yeah, and it was also
Yeah.
like, it wasn't like, when we say fascination, I guess also you have to remember that we're living in Thatcher's England, and it was a lot of like, you know how when you imitate to critique to basically create a mirror effect. Look at who we are now. Like, I think nowadays this kind of gets forgotten a little bit about the context, because everyone is so touchy with it.
It was anti-establishment.
Yeah.
You know, like Sid Vicious wearing a swastika T-shirt.
If you actually want to have some good insight about Joy Division, the two last tours that Joy Division did in the UK, you guys know who they were touring with?
No.
Killing Joke.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And Killing Joke was not opening for them. They were equal. Sometimes they would open or vice versa. And Killing Joke, even if their music is quite martial back then, they were rockers. They were fun people. They like to drink and
yeah.
And you have try to find Jazz Coleman, the singer of Killing Joke's interviews, where he talks about this time. I think it's probably the most honest take on what was going on there, much more so than the guys from New Order.
Yeah, I think
I don't know if you read Ian Curtis, the book that his wife wrote, and if you've read.
I don't read books. I'm completely illiterate.
Touching from a Distance. It's quite good. Don't know if you've read that, William.
That one I haven't, but no, what I was going to say was no, I think that's kind of what led to his death or his suicide. Was he was very anxious and nervous to go on tour in the U.S. and I believe that at the time of his death, that's they were about to go on tour there. But I've always heard that Joy Division wasn't the greatest live band, or like they truly were like.
It's not really that. It's that back then, for various reasons, the people, like, if you went to see Joy Division, it was not a party. Like, people, like, they were so different and maybe ahead of their time in a way, but like the audience wasn't, like, it was not a good mood. You didn't get out of a gig by them and say, oh wow, that was amazing. But when you listen to the recordings of that, you might have a different take.
Yeah,
it's just that.
You know, have you guys seen that movie Control?
Yes, I've seen that.
Okay, I kind of think that sort of gives like a little false
impression. I agree.
Yeah, no, that gives a false.
It's a bit revisionist in a way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, who knows? Like, Hedron.
Yeah. Let me see. Hello, gentlemen. By the way, Sid could play the bass. Was he great? No, but according to Johnny, he practiced often. So, Johnny Rotten just kind of selected Sid Vicious because he fit the image. He fit the punk image. And
I can tell you on that note, William, as someone who's played the bass in a few bands and who replace basses for their live shows, you don't need to be a great bassist to play the bass.
You need to know scales to play bass. And
no, I can guarantee you don't. I don't. And I played in bands without knowing any of that.
Yeah, you know, all you really need to know if you're a bass player and you need to join a random band, if you know how to do bass scales, you should be able to figure out anybody's songs easy. And bass isn't it's not as easy as what people think it is. People think it's easy because it's just four strings.
Depends what you want to achieve, William. If you are just doing like the bass frequency rhythmically, like that's quite easy.
Yeah,
that's
4D, man.
I can.
No, keep talking. I'm sorry, I was just reading through this, but
No, it's just like, and I don't say that to be a smartass. I just talk from experience. Like, I had a band where, honestly, I couldn't improvise anything. I could only play my own music that I composed. But then, when I was asked a few times, like, "Oh, can we need a bass player for that gig opening for this?" Blah. Okay, I'll try. And it was
yeah.
shit, but no one cared.
Well, funny thing. I'm gonna just not totally change the subject, but Chuck Berry is a good example of this. He says he doesn't need to tour with a traveling band. Just have a band ready in whatever city he's going to who knows Chuck Berry's songbook, and you're good to go. And it's like there's a lot of truth to that. Is maybe a little bit
I
easier
agree.
with Chuck Berry because his music was more simple and easy to figure out. But it's really not. I mean, when you know what you're doing, you shouldn't have a hard time joining a band, or it's not like uh, or like
But I'm saying, even if when you don't know what you're doing, if you're playing the bass, it's the easiest instrument to play. That, like, playing the
not
drum,
necessarily, man.
I can assure you from experience, like, playing the bass is a million times easier than playing the drums. Even if, because you still have to have rhythm to play the drum and coordination.
I recommend to people. There are people who said, no, I just picked up a bass and that's how I started. You do kind of want to learn how to play a guitar, and then you'll understand playing bass a lot easier. And that's just
Yeah,
me
for sure.
from experience. So, and I don't really
For
play much
sure.
guitar anymore, but
If you can play the guitar, there's no, like, playing the bass is super easy. But, like, playing the bass is super easy even without playing the guitar. I think it's super easy. I don't know. Like, I was heavily into music anyways, and I wanted to do it, but still I didn't.
yeah,
I
with
learned it
bass,
all by myself.
it's important to have light fingers. Where you don't really need to have like being able to spread your fingers wide is very important. Like I don't know the way I'm doing it. I feel like maybe I could learn, but I mean, yeah, guitar learning chords is a lot different. It's
Yeah.
similar-ish, but there are a lot of differences in playing bass and
I
playing guitar
just think
chords.
about it. How many keys do you think there's in the bass line in most punk songs?
It's very simple.
2 or 3.
Yeah, right. No,
So
well,
it's
it's not even just bass. How many chords are in any punk song? 2 or 3.
no. I didn't say chord. I said tone, keys. Like,
Yeah.
a chord, you need to know where it is. A tone, it's the tone. You don't even like. You
Yeah, I
just do.
mean, if you're a good guitar player,
It's 3 tones. It's
if you're a
fucking.
good guitar player, you know where all the chords are. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I want to bust my guitar out. But
Oh well.
anyways, Jim, I got a
What do you,
question.
how do you think Jim ended up being more like a Smith fan rather than a Joy Division?
Probably it's a UK thing is what is my best. I've never been a huge Smiths fan. I've already explained why, but
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. The Smiths aren't terrible. When I have sort of like maybe listened to a few songs from some of Jim's posts or whatever, or on his live streams. I mean, there are worse bands out there to like than
For
the
sure.
Smiths, for sure.
But they're a bit too. For me, when I learned about the Smith, I hated it. I thought it was atrociously precious. Now
Yeah.
I absolutely understand the craft, how they had a direction and they were good at it, and I can tolerate it. I don't mind it. I used to hate it so much because of the preciousness.
Would
And
you ever consider playing it on your live stream for Jim as requested?
I don't do requests, or
Yeah.
unless it's, like, I don't. If it's
No.
a request for something that you want to discover, sure. But like a request for something that I'm not an FM radio. I have like 3,000 subscribers. Like, they don't. Yeah,
There you go. Touching from a distance.
is that a pedophile handbook?
No,
That looks like, yeah, don't say that on the
Stunty.
channel, please.
no, Stunty.
Joy
book-
Division.
It's the book about Ian Curtis by his wife. It's nothing to do with
Yeah, I know.
pedophilia.
His wife. His
Where your-
wife.
where
No,
your
that's the
mind
book
goes.
I read. No,
That's where
Yeah.
Stunty's mind goes. But yeah, it's a good read.
yeah.
Also-
I read that back in when my first year working at Homer's, I read that book. A friend of mine gave that to me to read, and no, I mean, I think they talk
Jim,
about
you
how
like
they talk about how he died, and I think there's a lot of mystery shrouded in his death. I don't know that this is true. Sounds very hard to believe, but someone said that he hung himself while standing on an ice cube, or like a giant ice cube, and let it
I've
melt.
never heard that.
I
never
don't
heard that.
believe that at all. Yeah, I don't know.
But
Maybe
I was wondering, since
people like to tell stories.
he's so into the Smiths and all that, Jim, and you're into movies, right? You're heavily into movies.
Yeah, absolutely, without
That's
question.
you're at the right age for that. But I wonder, I've never heard you speak or mention Derek Jarman.
That name rings a bell.
Well, he did. He's the first guy to do videos for the Smiths.
Oh, of course, I did the Queen is Dead video. Yeah.
No, he did before that, and but he did all these movies, like amazing movies in the 70s, early 80s. He's one of the first movie directors to die from AIDS, but he did this movie that is very famous called Blue, which is only a blue screen, but he did an adaptation of the War Requiem, Benjamin Britten. He did Caravaggio. He did basically he launched the career of Sean Bean and Tilda Swinton. They started there.
Oh right, no, I know I recognized the name because he did.
You should investigate him because
Queen
all his
is Dead.
movies are
The Queen
like
is Dead.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I guess a lot of basically all that is interesting, in my opinion, about the Smiths, about this whole grim 80s from Thatcher and all that, you get the unfiltered version of that in Derek Jarman's movies. He did a movie called what was it called? A very good movie, a parody, a sort of take on David Bowie, child stars brought up by the church. It's when you see his movies, they're still miles ahead of their time.
Yeah.
It's just like a thought I wanted to share with Jim.
Well, we got real quick, Oakenshield 69, welcome to the show. My lawnmower just broke down, so I might as well hang here for a bit. Oakenshield, why don't you just go get your lawnmower fixed, dude? Jeez.
See, now we have even in Sweden, it's back to the green, so he's not lying, even if he's more north than me.
Oh, is he okay? Is he in Sweden?
Yeah.
You know who
Okay.
this is on the cover? This is Richard Davalos from East of Eden, who was James. He played James Dean's brother in the film. And yeah, I'm looking on the back. The Queen is Dead movie, a film by Derek Jarman.
Yeah. See. Well, you should, in my opinion.
This is, by the way, this is a US copy, which I found in a record shop in Italy.
That's a VHS, it looks like.
Yeah, it's VHS.
But
Is that,
I think you should do yourself a favor and just dive a little bit more into his not just his movies but also his history, because the connection there were so many musicians who had connection with him, and it tells a different story about the British music scene in the 80s and even 70s.
I will, and thank you, Stunty. That seemed sincere. That seemed like a
but
tone of sincerity there from Stunty, which I appreciate. You
don't always get that from Stunty.
Dude, I think by now, I make jokes, but I'm never like trying to.
But seriously though, you should play some. If you have do you have Viva Hate by Morrissey? You should play it on your DJ live stream. You should.
Haven't you seen my live shows that it's about like discovering stuff you don't know already?
Well,
yeah,
the other
people aren't. Yeah, I
the other thing
but you could really pull in the crowds if you play Morrissey.
the thing is like you play Smiths and Morrissey is a good way to get your channel your stream shut down. So the fall, there you go. Marky Smith, yeah.
I DJ'd once before and after the Smiths in Camber Sands, of all places.
Oh, Sounds good.
For those who don't know, in the UK, it's like a sort of balnear station in on the coast, on the east coast of of England.
I don't know if anyone's familiar with the story of the Elephant Man. I got this book. It's had this for a while.
I have not read that.
I want so hard to make jokes about the VC right now, but I'll refrain.
This is from the St John's Hospital Library in London. This is actually where the Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, lived when he was rescued in a way by the author of this book, Frederick Treves. Did you know that this is a
William, I think that Jim is becoming the new Jose.
this is a rumor that went around about Michael Jackson in the 80s, that he tried to buy the bones of Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. Is it true? Is it gossip?
Or is it just
How,
Paul McCartney
how would we
folklore?
know? How would we know? You have the book.
Yeah, only one problem, Stunty.
I've only watched the movie a couple of times, and that's my only connection to that whole thing.
There you go. Book from 1923. There you go. Interesting.
Anyway, I was going to mention about this Warsaw collection while we are on the Ian Curtis topic.
Which
that's a much
is it
different.
the record you just showed, William? Is it a bootleg?
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
Warsaw stuff is a bootleg.
Yeah.
I don't know why they've never made it official. It's kind of them sounding a little bit more sloppy. Maybe that's why. But this is what I go for. They've issued this also as like a little baby on the cover. It's the same compilation here, but this has some of their earlier like Leaders of Men, some early versions, Transmission, Interzone on here too. And yeah, no, this sounds more punk than post-punk, like, you know.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, and
I have the 7-inch, the Warsaw 7-inch.
yeah, no, that's kind of what I go for. I think Joy Division is a little bit overproduced. Now, I mean, because I love punk music, and I've given that all their albums fair listen. They're just not for me, but I do occasionally whip this out. I have a CD that I go for, usually, but yeah.
For me, the second side of Closure is the best pop rock whatever album ever.
The side 2 of that album.
Yeah, it's a constant source of inspiration for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it speaks to some people. It's just I just you know, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I've never loved Joy Division, and that's just, I don't know why. That's just me though. So, Jim, I wanted to ask you, next week you will be here in the States.
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
Talk to me about what you're looking forward to the most.
Well, I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing Morrissey live in St. Louis. The set list, the tour has started, of course, and I'm very excited by the set list. So we have some Morrissey and Marr classics back, Hand in Glove, the first single, Shoplifters of the World Unite. Last Night I Dreamt Somebody Loved Me, Big Mouth Strikes Again, and then some of my favorite tracks from his solo career, the solo work, Black Cloud, I Will See You in Far Off Places, etc., etc. Of course, the anthem that brings the house down, Every Day's Like Sunday. And his last single from the unreleased album Bonfire of Teenagers, he was briefly signed to Capitol Records, and they released the single Rebels Without Applause, and that is a great track. One of the tracks on that album, which would have made a terrific single, was I Am Veronica, which Miley Cyrus sang on. She sang backing vocals on that track.
Interesting. Okay.
Partly the reason why why Capitol dropped Morrissey and why they shelved the album was because she fell out with one of the producers and ordered her vocals to be removed. So I think that's partly why Capitol said, shelved the album and dropped Morrissey. Also, I don't know what the track is, but Iggy Pop is on the album.
Yeah,
I don't know what track, but he's
yeah.
on the album.
Iggy Pop has actually been doing a lot more stuff here in recent years. Or he had that sort of like super group project with Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. We got a question here, Dave, the pickup artist. Jim, will there be a meetup with the Waxed?
Very good question. With Rob.
Siegel.
Oh, don't dox.
Oh no, yeah, sorry.
He'll call the police. But the thing is with Rob, he's scared of me. He's
Come
Well,
on,
I would
stop.
be.
No, come on, guys. Like,
he's-
what are you saying? Like, now you're just like, that's theater. That means nothing.
Anyway, I've got some. I don't know if
Let's talk about more interesting stuff than all this nonsense. Yeah.
You collect cassettes. I've got a few here. This is I started something I couldn't finish from Strange Ways Here We Come. And there are some really nice B-sides here. We got Pretty Girls Make Graves with the Troy Tate version from the scrapped first. He produced the first album, and it was scrapped, and then it was re-recorded by John Porter. This version has I think it has a cello on it. Then you've got The Only Time Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others was played live at their final gig at the Brixton Academy. That's on here. And then you've got a cover version of the song What's the World by James, who are another Manchester group. James.
Yeah. A popular Manchester group.
Yeah, and the cover star is Avril Andrews from the movie The Family Way. And there's a bit of funnily enough, there's a Paul McCartney connection because he composed the soundtrack with George Martin. So there's a little bit of a McCartney connection in this, but it's very, very thin. So that's a great single with...
Which McCartney, though, are we talking about?
Well, he never died. There's only one Paul McCartney.
I'm just giving you shit there.
But yeah, because they'd already split up when these singles were released, they just had to use like B-sides, like live recordings, scrapped demos. So you get from the Strange Ways singles, the B-sides are very interesting. What else have we got here? We've got the...
My God, he's really the new Jose.
Yeah.
What's this got to do with Jose? I'm
You're just showing stuff unsolicited and talking or talking and talking.
Hey, at least it's music talk, man. Sometimes
Yeah.
Stunty does that really well.
Oh, I like Jose. I'm just noticing.
Well, Stunty does the same thing, but
No.
Viva Hate, the debut solo album.
Well,
I have a quiz for you, Jim. Guess which album I have one. Guess which album, Morrissey album I have, and guess because of which song. Which is my favorite Morrissey song.
I heard you mention that you have Viva Hate. And I don't know, your favorite track, I don't know. Late Night Magdalen Street.
No, it's not Viva Hate. It's not Viva Hate at all.
Not, I don't know then.
But take a wild guess. Which album?
Could it be Kill Uncle? Could it be Your Arsenal? Could it
Yes,
be
Your Arsenal.
Perhaps because it was produced by Mick Ronson. Are you a Bowie fan?
No.
No.
Funnily enough, the song I like on this was written by Alan White, who now writes for Madonna, Chris Brown, Benny Benassi. No, it's Glamorous Glue.
Yes, I've got that album. Where did I put that one?
I think this is the best Morrissey song ever.
It's definitely a fantastic album.
How do you rate it in his discography?
Probably 3. I put Viva Hate, Vauxhall and I, and then Your Arsenal.
So how many times have you seen Morrissey?
I've seen him once William at the Apollo in Manchester.
Okay.
Funnily enough, on the 4th of October, which was the same day in 1982 when the Smiths played their very first gig
Oh wow.
at the Ritz in Manchester. Same city, different venue.
Nice. That's
And the same venue, by the way, the Apollo,
yeah.
Johnny Marr and Morrissey first met. They were queuing up for a Patti Smith concert, and they met outside. And then I saw him in Leeds at the Millennium Square. So I've seen him twice.
Nice.
He doesn't disappoint without question.
Well,
to answer Dusty Spin's question, I would say it's
Okay.
kind of desperate. It's like we need content and controversy
yeah.
and get views or whatever.
You know, I
And
was
they're all
really
going to be the same, and they're all going to show the live, the Pink Floyd live in Pompeii too. It's boring.
I was going to
I
mention.
think we need more Morrissey talk in the VC. Let's cut the crap and let's talk about Stephen Patrick. 'Cause
Yeah,
he is-
but then you should do more videos about them and him rather than do all these like VC drama videos.
no,
Jim.
I do very few VC drama.
Who is even doing VC drama videos?
I
So-
do very few VC drama videos, and when I
Yeah.
do,
Well,
them,
if you,
when-
like your latest one is so.
20 seconds long or something. You know.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the quantity.
Hey, you know, someone's out there giving him the material, so that's all I got to say.
You know,
But-
William,
Yeah.
Jim's has only been doing stuff for how long now? 3 years, 4 years?
On YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, I've only known Jim for about a year. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. But like I remember seeing that he had some older stuff, but I just looked and you have like fucking 550 videos or so.
Yeah. Well, I put stuff on YouTube before I started to get
To brush
involved.
when you
Yeah.
brush your teeth.
When I was
So-
what was that again, Stunty? Say, is it comment you said?
No, I was saying that like you do like for you putting out a video on YouTube is like self hygiene in a way. It's like a reflex.
Oh, like brushing my teeth, right? Not
Yeah.
really. No, not really. I mean, it's like not at all. Actually, no.
So-
Strange remark there, Stunty, but no, not
I
really.
want
No. I'm not
to.
an
I want
addict.
to.
Oh.
Sorry to cut you off there, but not to cut Jim off, but I want to read Dusty's. What do you guys think of the VC channels doing content on CDs coming back strong? Channel 33 and the Third is one of those mainstream channels, and I almost want to say this is a topic he's tried to talk about or get going very frequently over the last couple of years. I almost wonder if he's like part of like some marketing to get people to buy more CDs.
It's because they have nothing else to talk about anymore.
I know we're all running out of topics, but
I wonder if cassettes are going to come back. They're going to become popular again.
they
They
very much.
already are. They already are,
Yeah.
Jim.
This is
There are shops. There are shops in major cities that only sell cassettes nowadays.
How about
So they
this?
are back.
Yeah, no,
Low in High School released on the BMG label on a cassette. I know William has a copy of this on vinyl. Have you listened to it yet?
I'm not. I kind of don't plan to open it, but I don't know. Maybe if you hang out with me here in Omaha,
definitely.
that could change. But I want to real quick, Dave the Pickup Artist. Are you staying with Maslow? Don't bend over to pick up the soap.
Yeah, no, I don't stay with Norman. No.
So I was gonna say I had this wild idea.
Wait, I don't understand. What does Dave the Pickup Artist imply here?
If you're sharing accommodation with Norman,
Yeah.
don't bend down to pick up the soap, or he'll.
It's
So
a
What's
prison
the problem?
It
What's the
was
problem?
a sexual joke, yeah.
Yeah.
Gay,
Oh, you
gay
think you? No, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I would usually agree. Dave is more highbrow than he wouldn't make a sleazy remark like that. But it's part of the Dave charm. I think Dave's
I must say I'm shocked and surprised.
I was gonna say maybe we could head down to Florida and give Dave the Pickup Artist a visit while you're here.
yeah. that
Oh,
sounds good
it's
to
in
me.
Florida? That's where I'm
Yeah.
going in the US when I'm going to the US.
That'd be a great VC meetup. Let's meet up with Stunty and Dave the Pickup Artist.
Yeah.
Huh?
I
Me
I
too.
actually-
can do a show
Yeah.
with Dave in his studio with all the TVs and all that. I would do that.
Yeah, no, I think Dave would be a great guy to meet in person. I'm sure he's funny as
Oh,
hell and has great
I mean,
stories.
he's completely crazy with the politics, but outside of that, that's fine.
By the way, this is Every Day is Like Sunday, the
See,
second single from the Viva Hate album, and these are just unbeatable B-sides, in my opinion.
you have J-
I now tend to hold Stephen Street in the same regard as Johnny Marr as a composer, as a musician. I think he's a genius. I really do. Not just as a producer, but as a composer also. Yeah, very cool. One of my
So,
this is
do you?
by the way, this is my avatar. If you don't recognize it,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
we do.
actually did. You see the photo I sent you at one of the Lincoln shops has an original 45 of that. So
yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I
I'm
saw it.
sure it will still be hanging out while when you come here. But I was going to ask you. So, do you want to do things like? Do you want to hit up every single St. Louis record store and buy all the good shit that Concert Buddy isn't buying?
No, William. I mean,
He's only into English stuff. Like he doesn't care about your American shitty records.
No, there's a record I want to buy for Jim when I meet him in St. Louis. So
I'll make this clear right now. I will only be buying stuff that I just cannot leave in the shop. You know,
Yeah.
must-haves.
Exactly. Because
but yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. You know,
what you got to keep in mind too, Jim, is traveling. You know, if you want to see go to a lot of cities, you're going to be taking a lot of records with you too, and then boarding a plane. I actually have boarded a plane with a crate of records, and I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
That's certainly not on my agenda though.
Before you go to the US, Jim, have you cleaned all your social media? Have you erased all your comments on the on all these videos that they will find and try to to use against you at the border?
Oh, what's the
I
insinuation?
mean, well, no, the insinuation is just that you admitted yourself you've been trolling quite a lot, so there might be stuff they find that, like, if I was you, I would just think, and I'm being half serious there, actually. Like, you might want to just double check your social medias before you arrive at the border customs.
There's nothing really untoward on my social media accounts there, Stunty.
Oh well, you know best. I hope for you.
Yeah.
No, I think you'll enjoy it.
I mean, this is the trouble with Stunty. He tends to hold others in the same regard as him, or judge others by his standards.
Yeah.
And,
No, I know. Yeah.
Stunty is.
No, my standards are all the people who. No, Jim. You're completely off here. You're completely forgetting what has happened to thousands of people at the border these days, and now grandstanding like that will get us nowhere. But that's fine. But you're just forgetting the fact. No, it's not gonna work, Jim. It's never gonna work. What you're forgetting is that there's thousands of people. Then it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You can try, but it's not gonna work. I'm trying to say to you, like, the honest to God thing, which is that it's like you might be like doing your shtick now, but the reality is that there's thousands of people who have been refused entry to the US soil.
Yes.
For the most innocuous reason.
That's true. That's correct.
So I think you should be fine there, Spring.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of it. He's got a point.
Yeah.
But
well,
you know.
Now let me say this, because we can hit up any record store, but you know you're gonna want to, you know, like you've already mentioned, you don't want to. Yeah, you got records over in England, and you probably see just the same stuff that you would see here. But like, what about like?
By the way,
what about like the Empire State Building? Like,
what about
in Chicago? I mean, I think that would be a good experience.
Wait, are you taking Jim for like Macaulay Culkin when he was 10 years old, or what are you talking?
No, so what I was gonna do for him was I'll pick him up in St. Louis, and then we can hit up some of the Midwest cities, and then I kind of just want to be a good host, and then make it so the trip isn't so expensive for them too. And then if you want to actually, you're more than welcome to stay at my apartment if you want to, plan out the trip here and map stuff
we'll
out.
see.
So
I mean, there are people out there who will try and sabotage the trip, William.
I'm not worried about it.
So maybe keep it on the down low. Otherwise, we're going to get,
You guys think really anyone cares about that?
You think
So
someone
much
would
that
sabotage your experience here in the U.S.?
I don't think so.
No, I
Yeah,
think
you should be all right.
Guy, yeah. I mean, we've already got an account here. I'm not sure what the
it's either McGrath or
thoughts on William and Jim coming around to yours for a guys afternoon and dinner. I mean, we could easily avoid that comments like that by just not sort of talking about it.
The cat is already out of the bag, so that's.
I'm fully aware of that now. But I mean, we probably are in a way provoking this sort of nonsense.
But you don't care. You don't have to care about that. Like when you'll be there.
No, I'm just saying we can't complain about it because we could have avoided that.
Yeah, but come on, Jim. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Comments, those kind of insinuations. But you're completely right. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's insignificant. I actually did suggest this. Zeb. He commented on one of my videos. He said, "I'm thinking about buying some Smiths records. What would you suggest?" And I think he said he had bought Hatful of Hollow, the fantastic compilation of non-album singles, B-sides, and radio sessions. And if Zeb's there in the chat, what are his thoughts? Has he listened to it yet? A lot of these John Peel, Kid Jensen radio sessions are, some say, I don't necessarily agree, but some say these are better recordings of the same songs that John Porter produced for the first album. You've got several different versions of these songs. You've got the Troy Tate recordings, you've got the first album, and then these radio sessions that are on the Hatful of Hollow. And I've got quite a few cassettes here. I've got a good cassette collection I've built up over the last few years, and it's looking good. I mean, I've got some of these singles here. Girlfriend in a Coma with Sheila Delaney as the cover star, who wrote A Taste of Honey and was one of Morrissey's great inspirations as a writer. We all know the infamous B-sides of this single. There was a cover of Work is a Four-Letter Word by Cilla Black. And Johnny Marr really did not want to cover this song, but Morrissey sort of persuaded the band to do it. And these were the last recordings they ever made, the B-sides for Girlfriend in a Coma, which is a single from Strange Ways Here We Come. Where's everyone gone, by the way? I'm sort of left here. Is Stunty gone? I mean, Stunty's it seems to me that there's nothing.
I just wanted to give you full screen while you're showing that. Sometimes those cassette tapes are a little bit hard to see while, they're small little items. So,
but this is a good collection. I know Stunty says, "Oh, Jim sort of goes off on tangents," but I don't see how, because this is all music related. This is all about collecting music.
Not on a tangent. It's like you have Smith's Tourette in a way.
A Smith's what?
Tourette.
Smith's Tourette.
Oh, Smith's Tourette.
That's a new one there, man.
No, but I say that I'm not attacking you by saying that. That's just an accurate description, and I think it's cute.
That I've not heard that one before. That's a good one.
Certain people, Stunty will know this from the Your Arsenal album. Yep. Certain People I Know, with Jack the Ripper as the B-side. Absolutely fantastic song. Anyway, I'll let you carry on. Yeah.
Oh, you will.
In fact, Dossier is actually correct. You need them all. Yeah, that's true about The World Won't Listen. It's mostly the same material, but you need the rest. You need all the studio albums. You need Meter's Murder. You need the debut album, and Strange Ways, and The Queen is Dead. I mean, they are must-haves for any collection.
You know who used this kind of words, must-haves? That's Norman Maslov.
You know, Norman Maslov is, do you know, a VC, some would say a VC leader. Some would say a leader of the VC.
Oh, what is a leader for you?
Not
The
you.
definition of a leader.
I'm not saying he's a leader. Some say he is a leader.
No, I'm asking you, what is your definition of a leader? I have mine.
Someone who takes charge and dictates.
No, that's not a leader for me. For me, a leader is someone who takes you where you don't want to go.
And does Mazzy do that?
No, not at all.
So you're saying Mazzy plays safe? You know, he's got.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying what he's not doing. He's not taking you where you don't want to go, for sure. And I don't. And I mean, you can be like, I've had this discussion with him a few times, like this whole idea of vertical and horizontal authority, and he uses techniques, whether he knows it or not, that are very vertical. And when you say, imagine when you say you must have this, if you take this to the logical conclusion, philosophical conclusion, it means that if you don't have that, I won't respect you.
Yeah, real quick, Zeb's comment, Norman owns the first pressing of Meet the Residents. I've seen him show that. It's like, it looks like the most perfect record you've ever seen, but I can't.
Yeah, but how do we know? How do we know it's an actual first pressing? Since
it looked, when he showed it, it looked. Yeah, I'm thinking that's a first press, and I believe him.
No, but he remember on his first auctions, he was saying this is the first American press, and then he turned out, like, he looks closely at it, and he said, and totally honestly, he realized, oh no, I was wrong about that. That's a completely different one.
Okay, I guess I didn't. I must have. That must have been a long time ago, but
yeah, but like, who cares? It's not that important. It's and now I'm talking about him, but he's not the only one doing that. A lot of people do that. Have this sort of vertical authority, rhetorical system where the way they phrase questions, or they put like a point on the table, it's like, it kind of puts you in a corner. It's like basically the basics of sociology. When you ask a question, ask an open question. Don't ask a question where the answers are already contained in the question, because that doesn't give you honest and good data.
Yeah,
that's also a way to manipulate people.
Yeah, no, he is an infomercial. I think he's speaking of Mazzy there, but Norman is the king of dragging a 3-minute video into a 35-minute video.
He's not the only one, then.
Well, no, I was going to mention later tonight, you'll watch, Jason's stream is going to be talking about the Discogs median price. So I can only imagine how long you're going to have to drag that one out. But
whose stream?
Jason's doing a Monday night stream now.
Okay.
So he'll be talking about the median price on Discogs, which do you guys want to talk about the value? See, the value of stuff on Discogs isn't always accurate in general, and that's across the board. And I don't even.
Yeah, but it's easy to figure out which kind. I mean, if you're good at analyzing this data, yeah, of course, there are some releases where the median price that you see that at that point is not the one you should take into account. When there are 40 copies of that record available and none has sold for over a certain period of time, and you have more than 5 copies available in regular countries for under a medium price in VG Plus or Best, then that means that the medium price is higher than what it should be.
Well, here's some certain factors to consider with that. Is the median price is the average price of everything that's sold on Discogs. So that also includes any, your G
Well,
pluses, your
it's
VGs,
not
your
just that,
VG plus,
William.
near mints, your sealed
It's
copies.
more complicated than that. It's
Well,
the
it's a lot of
price.
factors.
Yeah, it's the price that records sold for in the past 12 months or the 12 latest copies. If
Right.
um,
Yeah. It
that's
is
the
kind of more like
technicality.
that. And, but there are some things on Discogs that I've come across here recently, like folk albums, for example, which could be hard to find, like, 10 years ago when Discogs was in its early stages. So I've run into a lot of like folk records that might have like a sales history, like it sold one time for $25, but then you'll see like now it has like a dozen sellers and like, oh no, I only want $15 for my copy. I only want $8 for my copy. So the Discogs average price, or whatever you want to call it, it's just what's ever sold on that site. It's like, I don't know what they're going for on their thumbnail or whatever, but I don't think Discogs tries to deceive you with
No,
average prices that
no. The only
yeah,
people who can deceive you are the sellers. They're
yeah.
the only one. The
Well,
whole Discogs system is automated, so there's no deceiving. It's impossible.
the real way when I price stuff, I mean, I will look at sales history if I absolutely need to, but I typically price competitively to the market right now, and that's just because the market changes every day for one. For another, like I said, I mean, there could be albums like in the earlier stage of Discogs when you don't have as many sellers, or you don't have as many submissions, so you could have like some guy submitted an album and he really wants it. Well, as soon as someone lists a copy, he'll pay $25, but that doesn't mean that someone else out there in the world, doesn't need $25 for it. So, um,
I'll give you an
I,
example though that is kind of extreme, but probably very telling. Recently, fairly recently, I got a record that I already had because uh, I thought it was a good deal. I'll tell you what I paid after, but so and I already had it, and I bought it for a friend of mine potentially, but I also put it up for sale on Discogs just in case, just to see. And so the record there were about so the maximum it sold for was $280. I put it for 900.
yeah,
Uh, Immediately someone contacted me and asked me, "Oh yeah, I want it, but I think your price is blah."
yeah,
Like, yeah, but like I'm willing to pay more than the most it ever went for, but not much more. And then I told the guy, yeah, but the last time it sold was in 2016, 9 years ago. There's no other copies for sale. There hasn't been any other
yeah,
copy for sale since then.
yep,
There's like 20 people who have it and over 500 people who want it.
yeah.
I paid 300 for it.
See, that's kind of where you might want to get into auctioning it off.
Hmm.
Because then there are downsides to that too, because not necessarily everyone who wants the album is going to know when you are listing your auction. And that's just true with me. I mean, when you like, for example, when your want list is so big on Discogs, um, you can't sit there and sift through everything, and sometimes something rare is going to pop up and you're just going to miss it.
No,
So
because there's a system now um, with the function on Discogs called Want Lister.
yeah, no, that's a new thing they're introducing
You
here.
can do curated listings that you literally can put the settings if you want to have email alerts or blah blah blah, etc. And nowadays I get like exactly as they are put for sale the records. So now you can, which you couldn't before. And even though, like I refresh my my want lister page probably like 50 or 60 times a day, anyways. So
I used to do that, yeah.
We have an interesting comment left by 4D Man here. I think it'd be interesting to get a response from Stunty in regards to the definition of a leader.
Well, what do we got here? My definition of a leader is opposed to Stunty's. The destination isn't where you don't want to go. Destination your own autonomy. If a leader can't take you there, don't follow.
Yeah.
But the problem in for these man's paradigm here is that it kind of implies that a leader will have followers. Like a leader is someone who shows a path that is that you need assistance to get there, and either you take it or you don't. There's no forcing, and that's why I was talking about vertical and horizontal authority. If you have a vertical authority, which is basically, if you go down that path, that's what leads to fascism, is where you manipulate people into thinking that's the path. Then I agree with 4D Man, but I don't think that's the way you should do it. And I think that what he's talking about is absolutely not virtuous. But that's where we differ in opinion. And I respect 4D Man. We've had private discussions about that, so already. So it's not coming out of nowhere, just for you guys to know.
By the way, as I mentioned, Zeb, he was asking me where to start with the Smiths catalogue. In terms of solo Morrissey, if you want a compilation, I'd say a great place to start would be Boner Drag, which is the singles and B-sides from his early solo career. This is good. But then if you want some of the later stuff, greatest hits.
Is that really the question that Zeb asked you?
Yeah, no, I thought Zeb, I was looking for it here, but now I can't even really find it.
No, Stunty, this is something Stunty probably has asked me, so don't worry about that, Stunty. You just don't know. But yeah, Zeb, yeah. So there you go.
All right.
That's just for Zeb who asked. So. Yeah.
Well, guys, I don't want to cut you off short. It is about 2 hours into this.
Here for Richard James, who
yeah,
Stunty is the troll Billy Spleen. There is evidence that it's one of his troll accounts, including the fact that they both speak French. Well, I heard
it's a theory. I don't know. Your response?
Stunty, it can't be correct because Stunty panicked after the whole Thor scandal.
Oh, you want to have the truth about that?
He deleted all of his fake accounts in a panic.
No. You got it completely wrong, Jim.
Okay.
All right.
Like my comedy accounts, because they were not for trolling people. That was a long time before. Time before that. And the whole thing about the Thor meme. You really think I panicked about that?
That's what I heard. Yeah.
No. What do you think? I'm asking you what you think.
When you.
People whisper, man.
I'm asking you, yeah, but people can say whatever they want. I'm asking you, Jim.
Yeah.
Do you think I panicked?
When you referred to when you pasted Thor's face on the body of a Nazi,
which I didn't, but okay.
And there was who did then? I thought you didn't.
Oh, wait. First, I ask you a question, so please answer the question first. Do you think I panicked?
I think you panicked, and you.
Then you are completely off. You are comically off.
I think you panicked and you went on a fake account massacre. Yeah.
So then you are completely off. I'll tell you after if you want. If you're genuinely curious about that.
I am curious, yeah, because there are a lot. Because as you know, Stunty, in the VC, there's a lot of rumors.
Oh, but like lots of people know the truth about that. That's why I thought you would have known by now.
I'm not as invested in this as some.
See, the funny thing is Richard James here, he's the one begging me to unblock him from my streams, and he's like, Stunty. Well, he's the Billy Spleen, but like,
yeah, I think I just threw that one out as a kind of a joke, or maybe to see if someone would. Sometimes I do throw that little nonsense thing out just to see if someone responds. But guys, I'm getting hungry, and I'm going to cut the stream off. Any last thoughts here, or do we actually?
I'll stay with Jim after.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, how about we're going to close out with this? What album do you people own more than 3 copies of? Give me if you whatever's on the top of your head.
Is it like? Do you mean they have identical copies or three different versions of the same
No.
album?
Three different versions. Doesn't have to be identical.
On.
Well, for me, that would be Kike by Seafield, the shoegaze band on Too Pure. I own the original, the test pressing of the original that was rejected, and the latest 4 LP reissue of that.
Okay, and I think Jim, you just showed a Smith's album.
Yeah, well, I've got two copies. I've got it twice on cassette.
Okay.
And then I've got it on vinyl as well. The mispress band name and title is, as you can see, it's supposed to be like grey, but I have a mispress where it's green. So I've got that.
Okay.
I've got a few copies of this. I think it's probably my favorite album. Strange.
Yeah.
Way.
Well, I could list multiple albums for this question because I sell records and I do buy records in bulk, but I'm going to mention these couple. I have 4 copies of Bob Dylan Blonde on Blonde with Claudia Cardinale as the with the inner photo. And then I do have 4 copies of the first Dolly Parton record, which those are just kind of 2 tough ones that I have multiples of. So
I actually believe this street sign on the back, I think it was actually stolen by a fan who wanted it to display in their bedroom. It wasn't me, I promise. Someone did. And 4D Man will probably know because he's a Mancunian. So he'll know. I believe this was stolen, this sign. Yeah.
So how many bootlegs, Smith's bootlegs, do you have?
I've got loads. I really like bootlegs. How many? I don't know the exact number. I mean, I've got quite a few. Live shows, demos. Yeah. I like that sort of thing. And Richard James is absolutely correct. Moz was hospitalized and 2 shows on the tour were postponed. So I panicked.
Does he still have cancer?
Like Stunty, I panicked. But luckily, Richard James, the show in St. Louis.
Oh, all right. I see you're not of good face now, Jim. Okay.
Going ahead
London.
on next Monday. So fingers crossed there, Richard James, that it happens. Yeah. But best not to panic like Stunty did when that controversy happened and he was
So it's funny now. You just had a chance to have this thing, and now you're just showing that you're a bad face, so that it's not really of any use to tell you what happened. But okay, too bad.
Well, now.
Sorry, guys.
No, he panicked. Did Stunty panic again and he disappeared?
No, that was my fault.
It's a joke, or you could take a joke. It's just a joke, and comedy.
We'll see.
What can I say? We'll talk behind the scenes and let's see if we can.
Maybe.
Well, speaking of behind the scenes, I'm going to close the stream out. We can chat behind the scenes if you guys want to keep this going, but I got to get some lunch. I'm starving, as 2 hours is about my limit on these live streams. So with that said, guys, thanks for joining me on the Monday show. Stunty and Spring Hill Jim, thanks for being a guest. Look forward to your appearance here in the United States next week. Here, Spring Hill Jim. Hope I can be a good host for you. But with that said, guys.
That's all, folks.